My name is Maureen Mitchell. I'm 28 years old. And the moment I walked into that courtroom with my worn leather briefcase and 3 manila folders clutched against my chest, my mother literally rolled her eyes, so hard I thought they might get stuck. My father didn't even look at me, just shook his head like I was some kind of embarrassing stain on the family name. And my brother? Derek smirked from his seat next to their attorney, that same condescending smile he'd perfected since we were kids, the one that said I was nothing, that I'd always be nothing. Their lawyer, this slick guy in a $2,000 suit, actually chuckled when he saw me. Like I was a joke. Like I didn't belong there. But the judge? Judge Patterson looked at me with these sharp, calculating eyes, and I saw something flicker across her face. Curiosity. Maybe even respect? She noticed something about me that my own family never bothered to see. But before I tell you what happened next, what I revealed that made my mother's face go pale and my brother literally stand up from his chair in shock, hit that like button, subscribe to Revenge Queens, and comment where you're watching from. Because trust me, you're going to want to follow this channel after you hear what I did to the family that tried to destroy me. Now, let me take you back. Let me show you exactly how I ended up in that courtroom, fighting the people who were supposed to love me. I was always the invisible child. You know that feeling? When you're standing right there in the room, but somehow nobody actually sees you. That was my entire childhood. My entire life, really, until everything changed. Derek was the golden child. Derek got the new car for his 16th birthday while I took the bus. Derek got his college fully paid for, state school first, then they somehow scraped together money for his MBA. Derek got the family vacations, the attention at dinner, the praise for every mediocre accomplishment. Me? I got a used bike for Christmas when I was 12, and I was supposed to be grateful. I worked at a grocery store starting at 15. I paid for my own community college classes. I studied accounting and business management at night while working full-time during the day, and you know what my father said when I showed him my associate's degree? "That's nice, Maureen. Did you see Derek made the dean's list again?" I'm not trying to make you cry here. I'm just telling you the truth. The cold, painful truth about what it's like to be the spare kid, the afterthought, the one who doesn't quite measure up to the family's golden standard. My parents invested everything in Derek's dreams. He wanted to start a tech company. They gave him $50,000. It failed within 8 months, but that was okay. It was a learning experience. He wanted to buy into a friend's restaurant venture. Another $30,000. That crashed and burned too, but Derek was building his entrepreneurial spirit. Asked for $500 once to fix my car, so I could get to work. My mother actually laughed. "Maureen, we're not made of money. You need to learn responsibility." The hypocrisy burned. It burned so deep that some nights I couldn't sleep, just lying there in my tiny studio apartment, staring at the ceiling, wondering what I'd done to deserve being born into a family that couldn't care less whether I lived or died. But here's the thing about being overlooked, about being underestimated your entire life. You learn to be resourceful. You learn to survive. You develop skills that the golden children never need, because everything's handed to them on a silver platter. I worked 3 jobs at one point. 3. I waitressed, I did bookkeeping for small businesses, I cleaned houses on weekends. And slowly, painfully, I put myself through school. I earned my bachelor's degree in business administration. Then I started studying for my CPA certification. No help. No support. No, we're proud of you, Maureen. Just me. Alone. Fighting for every single inch of progress. And then Aunt Evelyn died. Aunt Evelyn wasn't like the rest of my family. She was my mother's aunt, technically, but she'd always been kind to me in this quiet, observant way. She never had children of her own. She'd built a successful consulting firm from nothing, started in her garage in the 70s and grew it into something that serviced major corporations across 3 states. I'd visit her sometimes when I was younger, when I could scrape together gas money for the 2-hour drive. She'd make tea, and we'd talk about business, about life, about her philosophy that the people who struggle the most often have the strongest character. "Your parents don't see you, Maureen," she told me once, when I was about 23. "But I do. I see exactly who you are. And one day, you're going to show everyone what you're capable of." I cried that day. It was the first time anyone in my family, extended or otherwise, had actually seen me. When she passed away 18 months ago, I was devastated. I went to the funeral, and my family barely acknowledged me there either. They were too busy networking, too busy making sure everyone knew Derek was doing amazing things in the business world. 2 weeks after the funeral, I got a letter from Aunt Evelyn's attorney. She'd left me something. Not money, exactly. Something more valuable. She'd left me her 51% ownership stake in her consulting firm. The firm was worth $3.2 million. And she'd named me, Maureen Mitchell, the overlooked, underestimated spare child, as the majority owner and designated manager. The letter included a note in her handwriting. Maureen, you have the mind, the work ethic, and the integrity to run this business. I've watched you build yourself from nothing. Now build something even greater. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't. Especially not your family. I sobbed reading that letter. I sobbed for an hour, clutching it against my chest, feeling seen and valued for the first time in my entire life. But you know what? I should have known it wouldn't be that simple. Because 2 days after I received that letter, my parents showed up at my apartment. They didn't call first. They just showed up, with Derek in tow, and the look on their faces wasn't happiness for me. It wasn't pride or congratulations. It was hunger. My mother actually pushed past me into my apartment like she owned it. Maureen, we need to talk about this situation. Situation? I closed the door, my heart already sinking. You mean Aunt Evelyn's gift? Gift. My father laughed, but there was no humor in it. Maureen, you can't seriously think you're qualified to run a multi-million-dollar business. Derek was leaning against my kitchen counter, arms crossed, that smirk on his face. Come on, sis. Be realistic. You're a bookkeeper. You do data entry and balance spreadsheets for mom and pop shops. Aunt Evelyn was clearly not in her right mind when she made that decision. The words hit me like physical blows. But I'd been hit by their words my entire life. I'd learned to take it. I'm not giving up my inheritance, I said quietly. My mother's face hardened. Maureen, don't be selfish. This is a family matter. That business needs proper management, someone with real business education and experience. Derek has his MBA. He's been running ventures for years. Into the ground, I said before I could stop myself. Derek pushed off the counter, his face flushing red. What did you just say? You heard me. Something in me snapped. Maybe it was Aunt Evelyn's words still echoing in my head. Maybe it was 20 years of being treated like garbage. Every business venture you've touched has failed. Every single one. And mom and dad funded all of them with money they claimed they didn't have when I needed help. How dare you? My mother started. We're not asking, Maureen. My father's voice was cold. We're telling you. Sign over management rights to Derek. You can keep some of the profits. We're not unreasonable. But you are not capable of running that firm. Get out. They stared at me. Get out of my apartment. Now. My mother's eyes went hard as stone. You're making a terrible mistake. If you don't do this voluntarily, we'll have no choice but to take legal action. Legal action? I actually laughed, but it came out broken. On what grounds? Derek smiled, and it was the cruelest thing I'd ever seen. On the grounds that you're mentally and emotionally unstable. That you lack the capacity and judgment to manage significant assets. That you're impulsive and irresponsible with money. That's insane. Is it? My mother tilted her head. You've never held a steady management position. You've jumped from job to job. You live in this tiny place. You drive a 15-year-old car. These aren't the signs of someone who should be controlling millions of dollars. They left after that. And I stood in my apartment, shaking with rage and disbelief and fear because I knew they meant it. 2 weeks later, the petition arrived. The legal document was thick. 37 pages of lies, accusations, and twisted truths designed to paint me as incompetent. Respondent displays impulsive behavior inconsistent with sound business judgment. Respondent has demonstrated erratic spending patterns and financial instability. Respondent lacks the education, experience, and emotional stability necessary to manage high-value assets. Petitioners seek a court order declaring respondent unfit to manage the inherited business interest and requesting transfer of management authority to Derek Mitchell, who possesses proper qualifications. I read it 3 times, and each time I felt sicker. They'd attached evidence. Statements from former employers, taken out of context, making it sound like I'd been fired for incompetence when really I'd left for better opportunities. Bank statements, conveniently showing the months when I was between jobs and broke, not the times when I'd saved thousands. Psychological assessments, from a doctor I'd never even met, claiming I showed signs of poor judgment and instability. It was all lies, fabrications, manipulations of truth designed to destroy me. And it was working. Within days, Derek posted cryptic messages on social media. Sometimes you have to protect family members from themselves, even when they don't understand, even when they hate you for it. His friends commented, "You're doing the right thing, man. Family first. She'll thank you eventually." People at my work started asking questions. "Are you okay, Maureen? I heard there's some kind of legal situation." I felt exposed, humiliated, like I was walking around with a sign on my back that said incompetent, unstable, unfit. I barely slept. I barely ate. I'd worked so hard my entire life, fought for every scrap of dignity and independence, and now my own family was trying to strip it all away because they wanted money. They believed they deserved more than I did. Honestly, this part was the lowest moment of my life. Rock bottom. I sat on my bathroom floor one night and just cried until I had nothing left, wondering if maybe they were right. Maybe I was fooling myself. Maybe I wasn't good enough. And if you're still watching this, if you're still here with me in this moment, maybe consider subscribing to Revenge Queens. It helps the channel grow, and it helps me keep telling these stories. And if you choose not to, at least tell me why in the comments so I can improve these stories for you. Because I'm putting my pain out here, and I just want to know it matters to someone. But anyway, I pulled myself off that bathroom floor because I remembered something. Aunt Evelyn had given me more than just the business. I drove to the storage unit where I'd put Aunt Evelyn's personal effects, the boxes her attorney had sent me along with the business documents. I'd been so overwhelmed I hadn't gone through everything yet. I started searching, and 3 hours later, covered in dust, I found them. Sealed folders. 4 of them. Each one labeled with my name in Aunt Evelyn's handwriting. Inside the first folder, a secret addendum to the inheritance documents. Legal language that I had to read 5 times to fully understand, but basically it said this: any attempt by family members to contest my ownership or management of the business through claims of incompetence would result in automatic forfeiture of their own minority shares in her estate. She'd protected me. She'd seen this coming. Inside the second folder, letters. Dozens of letters Aunt Evelyn had written to me over the years, but never sent. Letters detailing her observations of my character, my work ethic, my intelligence. Letters that could serve as evidence of my competence from someone who actually knew me. Maureen has more business sense in her little finger than Derek has in his entire body. I've watched her analyze problems with clarity and solve them with creativity. She is exactly what my firm needs. Inside the third folder, audio recordings. Aunt Evelyn had recorded conversations with my parents from years ago. I listened to them with my hands shaking. My mother's voice. Maureen's always been difficult. Not like Derek. She doesn't have his natural charm or intelligence. Aunt Evelyn's response. Maureen is twice as intelligent as Derek. She's just had to fight for everything while he's been handed everything. You're blind to your own daughter's capabilities. My father. She's working retail, Evelyn. At her age. That tells you everything you need to know. Aunt Evelyn. It tells me she's resilient and willing to do whatever it takes to survive. Those are the qualities of a successful business person. I cried listening to those recordings. Someone had defended me. Someone had seen my worth when my own parents couldn't. But the fourth folder was the game changer. Inside, evidence that my parents had fabricated the psychological evaluation. Aunt Evelyn had somehow obtained proof that the doctor who assessed me had never met me. She'd done her own investigation, anticipating they might pull something like this. There were emails between my mother and the doctor, discussing payment for a consultation report about a family member he'd never examined. There were documents showing the timestamps didn't match. The evaluation was supposedly conducted on a date when I had proof I was in a completely different state for work. They'd committed fraud. Actual, prosecutable fraud. And I had evidence. But I needed more than evidence. I needed standing. I needed to walk into that courtroom as someone they couldn't dismiss. So, I'd been doing something in secret for the past 4 years. Something nobody in my family knew about because they never bothered to ask about my life. I'd been studying. Not just accounting. Not just business management. I'd completed my CPA certification 2 years ago. I'd taken night courses in corporate law. I'd apprenticed under a business attorney who specialized in estate planning and corporate governance. I'd earned certifications in business analysis, financial planning, and corporate ethics. I'd built myself into exactly the kind of person who should run a multi-million-dollar consulting firm. And they had no idea. I filed my countermotion through my attorney, a sharp woman named Patricia Chun who'd taken one look at my evidence and said, "Oh, we're going to destroy them." The counterpetition included a motion to dismiss their claims with prejudice, a counterpetition for fraudulent interference and harassment, all of Aunt Evelyn's protective documents, proof of the forged psychological evaluation, documentation of my education, certifications, and professional qualifications, character statements from my professors and professional mentors, financial records showing my actual spending patterns and savings, proving financial responsibility. When my parents' attorney received the filing, he called Patricia's office 3 times in one day. Damage control. Too late. The court date was set. And I spent 3 weeks preparing for the fight of my life. If you're still here listening to this insane journey, you might as well subscribe to Revenge Queens.
And if you won't, comment why.
I read every single response, and I genuinely want to know what I can do better. Because this next part? This is where everything came together. The day of the hearing arrived. I put on my best suit. Not expensive, but professional. I carried Aunt Evelyn's old leather briefcase, the one she'd used when she first started her business. Inside, 3 folders.
Organized. Tabbed. Perfect.
I walked into that courtroom alone. Patricia was meeting me there, but I arrived first. And that's when it happened. The moment I described at the beginning. My mother rolled her eyes. My father shook his head. Derek smirked. Their attorney, this smug man who probably charged $500 an hour, actually chuckled when he saw me with my worn briefcase and my simple suit. Like I was nothing. Like I was already beaten. But Judge Patterson looked at me with those sharp eyes, and I saw her take in my posture, my organization, the way I carried myself.
She noticed something.
She noticed I didn't look like a victim. I looked like a professional. "Ms. Mitchell," she said as I took my seat. "I've reviewed the filings in this matter. This is highly unusual." "Yes, Your Honor," I said clearly. "I appreciate the court's time in resolving this family dispute." My mother whispered something to their attorney, probably about how I was putting on a show, pretending to be something I wasn't. Patricia arrived and sat beside me.
She squeezed my hand once.
"Ready?" I nodded. The hearing began. Their attorney stood up and launched into his presentation, painting me as incompetent, reckless, emotionally unstable, using all their fabricated evidence. I watched my parents nod along. Derek looked confident, like this was already over. Then Patricia stood up. "Your Honor, if I may. Before we proceed further with petitioner's claims, I need to bring several critical matters to the court's attention." "Proceed, Ms. Chun." "First, I'd like to submit into evidence the complete inheritance documentation from Evelyn Morrison, including a protective clause that petitioners seem to have overlooked." She handed copies to the judge and to their attorney. I watched their lawyer's face change as he read. The smugness melted into confusion, then concern. Patricia continued. The decedent anticipated potential family challenges and included specific language protecting Ms. Mitchell's interest. Any attempt to remove her from management authority through claims of incompetence would result in petitioners forfeiting their own minority inheritance shares. My mother gasped. Actually gasped. My father grabbed the document from their attorney, reading frantically. Furthermore, Patricia said, her voice calm and deadly, the psychological evaluation submitted by petitioners as evidence is fraudulent. That's absurd. Their attorney started. We have emails proving Dr. Richard Nelson was paid to produce an evaluation of someone he never met. We have timestamp evidence showing the supposed evaluation date was impossible. We have Dr. Nelson's own admission from 3 days ago, obtained by subpoena, that he never conducted an assessment of Maureen Mitchell. The courtroom went silent. I watched Derek's face drain of color. Judge Patterson leaned forward. This is a serious allegation, Miss Chen. I have the evidence here, Your Honor. Additionally, we have audio recordings of conversations between the decedent and petitioners, demonstrating their long-standing bias against Ms. Mitchell and their intentions to manipulate this inheritance. Patricia played one of the recordings. My mother's voice filled the courtroom. Maureen's always been difficult. Not like Derek. She doesn't have his natural charm or intelligence. I watched my mother sink into her chair, her face red. Your Honor, Patricia said, not only are petitioners' claims baseless, they are built on fabricated evidence. This is fraud. This is harassment. This is an abuse of the legal system designed to intimidate and control Ms. Mitchell. Their attorney was whispering urgently to my parents, trying to figure out how to salvage this disaster. Then Judge Patterson turned to me. Ms. Mitchell, I'd like to hear from you directly. What is your position on your capability to manage this inherited business? This was it. The moment. I stood up. I opened my briefcase. I pulled out my carefully organized folder. Your Honor, my family has spent my entire life underestimating me. They see me as incompetent because they've never bothered to actually look at who I am or what I've achieved. I handed documents to the judge. I have a bachelor's degree in business administration from State University. I have my CPA certification. I've completed advanced coursework in corporate law, business analysis, and financial planning. I currently work as a senior financial analyst for Cooper and Associates, where I manage accounts worth over $8 million. I have professional certifications in corporate governance and business ethics. The judge was reading through my credentials, her eyebrows rising. I've worked 3 jobs at once to put myself through school. I've built my professional qualifications through pure determination because my family invested their resources in my brother's repeatedly failed business ventures instead. Derek half stood from his chair. That's not. Mr. Mitchell, sit down. Judge Patterson said sharply. I continued, my voice stronger now. Aunt Evelyn knew exactly what she was doing when she left her business to me. She saw what my family refused to see, that I have the intelligence, work ethic, integrity, and education to not just manage that firm, but to grow it. And I intend to do exactly that. I pulled out the last document. This is a business plan I've developed for the firm's expansion over the next 5 years, including market analysis, projected growth, and strategic partnerships. I prepared this because I take my responsibilities seriously, because I respect what Aunt Evelyn built and what she trusted me with. I placed the business plan on the judge's bench. My family's petition isn't about protecting me or the business. It's about money they believe they deserve more than I do. It's about maintaining the same pattern that's existed my entire life, where Derek gets everything and I get nothing. But Aunt Evelyn broke that pattern, and I will not allow them to manipulate the legal system to restore it. I sat down. My hands were shaking, but I felt powerful. I felt seen. Judge Patterson was quiet for a long moment, reading through everything I'd submitted. Then she turned to my parents and their attorney. I'm going to be very direct here. This petition is not only without merit, it's offensive. Ms. Mitchell is clearly qualified, and the evidence you've submitted is fraudulent. You've wasted this court's time with lies and manipulation. My mother started crying. Not real tears, performative ones. Your Honor, we were only trying to. I don't want to hear it, Mrs. Mitchell. Judge Patterson's voice was ice. The petition is dismissed with prejudice, meaning you cannot refile. Furthermore, I'm sanctioning petitioners for submission of fraudulent evidence. You'll each pay a fine of $5,000 to the court. And as per the protective clause in the inheritance documents, your minority shares in Evelyn Morrison's estate are hereby forfeited due to your bad faith challenge. Derek actually stood up. You can't. That's not fair. Mr. Mitchell, I suggest you sit down and be quiet before I hold you in contempt. He sat. His face was white. My father looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Judge Patterson turned back to me, and her expression softened slightly. Ms. Mitchell, your aunt made an excellent choice. The business is legally and definitively yours to manage as you see fit. This court affirms your full authority. Thank you, Your Honor. The gavel came down. It was over. We walked out of that courtroom, and my family didn't say a word to me. They huddled with their attorney in the hallway, probably trying to figure out how much this disaster was going to cost them. Patricia squeezed my shoulder. You did beautifully. They'll never bother you again. Thank you. For everything. You did all the hard work years ago, Maureen. You built yourself into someone they couldn't tear down. I just presented what you'd already created. In the weeks after the hearing, everything changed. My parents' attorney dropped them as clients. Too much reputational risk. Derek's smug social media posts mysteriously disappeared. The online gossip dried up as word spread about what actually happened in court. I took full control of Aunt Evelyn's firm. And you know what? I was good at it. Within 6 months, I'd streamlined operations, brought in 3 new major clients, and increased revenue by 18%. I used some of the profits to create a scholarship fund for young people from difficult families who are working to put themselves through school. Because I know what that struggle feels like. I know what it means when somebody actually invests in you instead of tearing you down. I bought a house. Not a mansion. I'm not interested in showing off. But a real home. With an office where I work on business strategy. With space to breathe and grow. And I set boundaries with my family. Hard boundaries. My mother called once, 3 months after the hearing. Maureen, we need to talk about everything. Maybe we can work past this. Family is family.
No, Mom.
Family is supposed to support each other. You fought to take away the one thing someone saw fit to give me because you thought I wasn't good enough. That's not family. That's abuse. You're being dramatic. I'm being honest. Don't contact me again. If you need to reach me for actual emergencies, go through my attorney. I hung up, and I felt lighter than I'd felt in years. Here's what I learned from all of this, from this nightmare that somehow turned into the best thing that ever happened to me. Being underestimated can be your greatest advantage. While they dismissed me, I was building myself into someone formidable. While they assumed I was weak, I was getting stronger. While they laughed at me, I was earning qualifications they couldn't imagine. Your family doesn't define your worth. I spent 28 years believing something was wrong with me because my parents couldn't see my value. But the problem was never me. It was their blindness. It was their favoritism. It was their inability to recognize strength that looked different from what they expected. Documentation is everything. Aunt Evelyn protected me because she thought ahead. She saw the danger and created safeguards. And when I fought back, I had evidence.
Proof.
Records. You can't just tell your story, you have to be able to prove it. Sometimes the people who claim to love you will be your greatest enemies. That's painful. That's brutal. But it's true. And recognizing it, really seeing it clearly, that's when you can finally protect yourself and move forward. And finally, revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes the best revenge is simply becoming everything they said you'd never be. Building the life they claimed you couldn't handle. Succeeding despite their sabotage. That's what I did. I'm running a $3.2 million consulting firm. I'm expanding it. I'm creating opportunities for others. I'm living well, and I'm living free. And my parents? They're exactly where they deserve to be, on the outside looking in, finally understanding that the child they overlooked was the only one who had what it takes all along. So if you've been overlooked, underestimated, dismissed by people who should have believed in you, keep building.
Keep working.
Keep proving them wrong, not with words, but with accomplishments they can't deny. That's how you win. That's how you survive. That's how you become a revenge queen. If this story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button. Join this community of people who refuse to stay down. Comment below with your own story, or just tell me where you're watching from. Give this video a like if you believe in fighting back against people who try to break you. And remember, this is a fictionalized dramatization. I'm not providing legal or financial advice. But the emotions, the pain of betrayal, the triumph of proving everyone wrong, that's all real. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. Thank you for giving me a space to be heard. Welcome to Revenge Queens, where the underdogs become the champions, where the overlooked become unstoppable. See you in the next one.